First of all, good afternoon, everybody. And I'd like to welcome you today to our 2018 Annual General Meeting. I'm sure most of you will have enjoyed the highs and lows of the World Cup. It's all been good fun. I was actually in France, and the joy was unbridled for the French, anyway. But it was a great competition. It's fantastic. And I suppose on the theme of football, it's brilliant to be here at the home of Brighton and Hove Albion, one of the two Premier League teams in the coastal capital LEP area. That means that we are in the Premier League of LEPs as regards Premier League teams, because no other LEP has more than two, including Manchester, so that makes us extremely proud. And of course, I shouldn't really mention the name, but other team is obviously Crystal Palace. Not much loved in Brighton, but much loved by the LEP. Anyway, so I'm very proud to have served as the Coastal Capital Chairman since 2015 and on the board since 2012. And I've seen how far the LEP has come over that time, and it has been really impressive and fantastic. Today is the next stage in what we're doing, and we are launching our strategic economic plan, Gatwick 360. Gatwick 360 is a bold plan for our future, as you'll see, both in style and in substance. It is a vision for taking our economy to the next level. It has been a year of extensive research, evidence building, and engagement with partners to prepare this ambitious document, which sets out our vision for the region up to 2030. I've been particularly struck by one particular piece of that research and evidence. It says that if our area had grown since 2009 at the same rate as Enterprise M3 and adjoining LEP, our economy would be 3.1 billion bigger than it is today. So we really can't be complacent, despite the fact that we think our region is absolutely wonderful. Jonathan will say more about the challenges and opportunities when he speaks next. However, it's up to us, the business, political and education leaders in this room, to make this vision a success, to close the gap, bring wealth to all our towns and cities with a strong Gatwick airport at the beating heart of our area. I commend this strategy to you, and I invite Jonathan to present it to you. So, Jonathan.
I'm Jonathan Sherrick, I'm Chief Executive of Coastal Capital, and what I'm going to do today is talk you through what the company has achieved over recent years, where our region is, and what we're going to do next in terms of taking forward our strategy, Gatwick 360. I will start with a kind of obvious place to start in the world we're in. I mean, the really exciting thing about working in the LEP is that we straddle this boundary between government, politics, and academia, and fundamentally, our role is to think about our region. And you can't really talk about our region without talking about the national context that's going on around us. I don't know how many of you have read the government's white paper on Brexit, which is pictured on the right of this slide. Maybe you'd like to raise your hands if you have done. Well, I spent quite a large part of the weekend reading it, and it's there's a phrase, isn't there? Don't judge a book by its cover. But I think, frankly, the cover for this publication is entirely appropriate because it is as the cover implies, it is a very detailed and factual and quite somber document in many ways, looking at the importance of the decisions that need to be taken about our relationship with the EU in future and what Brexit means for the country. And I should just say, before I go any further, that as many of you know, but just so that you're all absolutely clear, Coastal Capital is not a political organisation. We work effectively with politicians on all points of the spectrum, all points of the Brexit debate, all across the region and in government. So none of this should be taken in any political way. But of course, we do have to understand that Brexit will mean change. It's going to mean change in the way our economy works, and it's going to mean political change as well. It's going to mean change in the practicalities of how business is done, how trade works, and how the UK works with the rest of the world. And it's going to mean change in the political way, in the way that politics operates in this country, because so many decisions have been taken in Europe and are going to be taken in the UK going forward, it would appear. One of the most important issues there is regional policy, where the EU has had a very strong regional policy for many years, and we're all familiar with the structural funds and what the EU does to invest in different regions of our country. Now, it's no coincidence at all that we're publishing our strategy today. We've worked really hard with you over the last 12 months to get ready for this point, because we've always felt that having a really clear strategy ready at the time that Brexit starts to become clear is fundamental for the influence and the success of the region. And that's why I'm delighted that we're able to give it to you today, because it allows us to explain our region in the context of Brexit. And it's a huge opportunity to raise the profile of our region and to exemplify to government what a region like ours can offer as the government wrestles with these very, very difficult political changes. So moving on to the document, and I'm delighted you all have a copy of the document. If you don't, please just jump up and grab one. Take it home, enjoy it. Make sure you've got a good magenta ink cartridge in your computer if you want to print out another copy, because that's a bit of a challenge. We'll make sure the web version is easier to print. You know, the challenge of any change, of course, is are you able to influence that change? Are you able to be part of change? Are you able to make your voice heard and address change with confidence? And as we look at the challenges of Brexit, I think the view of Coast Capital, well, I know the view of Coast Capital is an unequivocal yes to that question. You know, we believe through this document that we can explain what our region's economy is, how our region works, and above all, how we can make the most of these opportunities that are going to come up. You'll know us as a local enterprise partnership covering a wide region, all the way from the coast all the way up to London Borough of Croydon. And what we've done in developing this is really look all across the region to change three things about our view of the world. The first thing we've done is we've completely reviewed our analysis that's been in place since the last strategy was published in 2014. So we've gone right the way back to fundamentals of how does the region work, how does the economy work, what does it all mean. We've worked very, very closely with many of the people in this room and many others who aren't here today, and we've really relished the challenge and the criticism that people have given us over that process, because strategies don't have any template to them. You know, it's not as simple as going around the region and naming each town and saying how good it is. You know, to get a strategy that really bites, you've got to have a sense of what your audience wants to see. And you have all been very helpful in challenging us to make sure that we can nail those issues really clearly. And then thirdly, we have a very strong political endorsement for this strategy from across the region. So all of the local political leaders, many of whom are here today, met in what we call our joint committee, which is all 18 local authorities that make up our region, and enthusiastically endorsed this strategy a few weeks ago. So what I'm launching today is something with a brand new evidence base, very strong political support, and very thorough engagement with our stakeholders, which makes it really powerful and a great opportunity to make ourselves heard. And the debate about growth in the country is increasingly dominated by regional accents, isn't it? You know, there's a lot of accents in cities, there's a lot of accents in the north, a lot of accents in the devolved administrations in the Midlands, and in many cases you'd think these are the voices that carry regional growth. And what we're trying to do today is explain in our own way what our region needs and how our region needs to grow in future, and how we can leverage the political influence we've got, the strength of our businesses, and the knowledge that we have through our education sector across the region. I'll just say a few words about what Coast Capital has achieved so far and why we think we're in a great place to take this forward. So you'll all know us as the vehicle that's been in place since 2011 to invest public money in the region. The LEP has been able to access the funds that I've set out here. That's structural fund money from the EU, the Local Growth Fund, which is a capital investment fund, and our Growing Places Fund, which we invest in growing businesses and enterprises around the region. And what we've been able to do is identify a whole lot of projects which we think really are going to have a huge impact on the way the region's economy works in future. It's really important that we understand these, because government's only going to give money in the future to regions that have made a success of the money we've had so far. And we all need to be really clear about how successful we've been. Of course, Coast Capital is not a statutory body, so we don't have the powers or the resources or the resilience of local authorities. We have to work with local authorities. And we're not an elected body, so we don't have that really, really close interface with local communities that every politician in the room has and every politician across the region has. And of course, we're not a delivery body either. We work through others to deliver our projects. And many of the things going on in the region are happening because Coast Capital has invested in them, which you might not be aware of. And we do try and get our logo prominently on every building site in the region, but sometimes that's harder than you might think. So I want to just talk you through some of the things that we have achieved and take you on a little tour of our region. The first place we'll go is Bognor Regis, which you'll all know, down the coast from here. Bognor Regis is in many ways a classic seaside town, and seaside towns all across the country offer economic challenges and have huge potential for future economic growth, and Bognor's no exception there. Now, what we've done in Bognor Regis is invested £8 million in the building you can see on the top right of that slide. That's a brand new science campus for the University of Chichester. It'll be opening in a few weeks' time in September for the new intake of students. And what that's doing is allowing the University of Chichester to offer for the first time a STEM curriculum so that it can bring students in and qualify them with STEM skills that businesses in that part of the region need. Now, down on the coast in Arran and along the coastal strip, we have a large number of manufacturing businesses, and we have a large value added from that sector of the economy, but it has historically been quite hard to recruit engineers and STEM experts to move down to the south coast from the West Midlands. So what we're able to do is grow our own expertise. And as the years go by, we're going to have hundreds of graduates coming out of this campus in Bognor Regis every year, qualified to a curriculum that's been determined with the local university, with roots in the town, and many of them through the University of Chichester will have come from the local area, and so will be able to operate at a level of productivity and earn more money than they would otherwise have been able to do. What we're also going to have, of course, through the investment in the town, is more students in Bognor Regis, more presence of the university in the town, and it's proven across the country that universities do make a fantastic difference to the wealth and the health and the cultural vitality of a town. So we are really confident that Bognor's going to really be going places as this investment comes forward. Moving along, we should go to Crawley next. Crawley is, in many ways, as the strategy will show you, the jewel in the crown of the region. The productivity per head of businesses in Crawley is the highest in the region. In national terms, Crawley is the 8th highest local authority in terms of its output per head. So it ranks higher, not just than most cities in the UK, but most parts of London as well. So it really is a hugely productive asset to our region and a really vital jigsaw in how our regional economy works. And Coastal Capital has invested £18 million in the Crawley economy over the local growth fund so far, and we've been able to invest in the fundamentals of what makes Crawley work, in the traffic lights, in the public realm, so the town centre, how the pavements work, how the bus services work, how the bus stations work, how the public infrastructure of Crawley operates. Because without that investment, the case is that Crawley won't be able to continue to attract the private businesses and the private investment that it needs to keep its economy flourishing. So we think this is another really good example of investment in a town which has a strategic importance, and we've been able to make these investments because we see the strategic picture. And then next, I'll take you to Croydon, at the other end of the region. Now, everyone will be aware of the change and the transformation that Croydon is going through at the moment and is going to continue to go through over the coming years. And you'll all have seen the enormous investment that the government and the private sector has put in to the new Westfield Hammerson shopping development in the town centre. When you go through on the train, you'll see the new offices that are opening and filled already by the station. And as you walk around the town, you'll see a changing culture in the town. Of course, Croydon is fundamental to the whole region as well, and that's not just because it's got the only IKEA in the region, and I'm sure everyone in this room, and catch my eye if this isn't true, but I'm sure everyone in the region has driven up the A23 late at night to go and get their flat packs ready for a weekend's flat pack assembly. So Croydon is at the heart of how the coastal capital economy works. It's where the trains all go. It has the largest office space in the region. It's the largest factor in our economy, as the strategy tells you. It's going to change quite significantly over the coming years as this investment comes through. And the vision for Croydon is that it really starts to become a 24-hour city, with many, many more people living and working in the town centre, and a real pole for growth in London. And the Mayor's strategy confirms this in terms of his plans for growth of London. And really, Croydon's fundamentally an illustration of our links to London and the way our region works with the London economy. So to support that, what Coastal Capital's done is invested £14 million in the Fairfield Halls, which you'll see on the top right of the slide. The Fairfield Halls is under development at the moment. It'll open quite soon, I think next year, and that will be a major cultural asset, not just for Croydon, not just for this region, but for the whole south of England. It'll provide cultural facilities, business facilities, office space that really takes our offer as a region to another level, a real city-scale facility for the whole area to benefit from. And again, that reflects Coast Capital's strategic view of how the region works and how Croydon fits into that. I'm afraid I haven't got time to go through the other projects that we fund, but you can take it from me that there are more than 90 of them through the different funds that I've described. Some other highlights, I mean, here we are in Brighton and Hove. There are 18 projects in Brighton and Hove, many of them hugely iconic, including the I360, the Circus Street regeneration in the town centre, the regeneration happening by the station. Huge investment in Brighton. In East Surrey, we've invested in 8 separate projects to upgrade the roads in East Surrey, so the works that have been going on the A24, on the A217, on the A23, we've been pleased to fund all of those to make sure that the East Surrey economy continues to grow. I could talk about Newhaven very briefly, very close to here. Newhaven's our enterprise zone. We have 8 sites in Newhaven, all being developed at pace, at a huge scale. It includes the whole of the town centre. And when we launched our strategy for Newhaven Enterprise Zone last week, we set out an aspiration of £250 million investment in Newhaven from private and public sources over the next 10 years. And we're confident that'll really transform the way the town works. And there's a stall in the corner if you want to understand more about Newhaven over drinks later. FE to finish, 16 FE investments in the region, improving our further education infrastructure. So you get the picture. We think we've done a really good job with the money that government's given us so far in order to change the region. And we've also worked really hard in terms of supporting businesses in the region. And just a quick couple of words on the 2 main services that Coast Capital operates. The first of these is our Enterprise Advisor service. We are funded by government to link business people with schools and colleges across the region. So we've managed to mobilise 280 business leaders. Many of you are in the room, do this role for us. Link business people up to schools and colleges so that young people are better informed about what the world of work means and they make better choices about their education. We've been doing this for 2 years now and it's really starting to bring fruit. And we're starting to see, and if you look at LinkedIn, I say this all the time on LinkedIn, we're starting to see Coast Capital branded careers fairs happening in schools and colleges across the region, bringing proper businesses, really sort of major businesses that probably are just down the road from the school but have never had the opportunity to link into the school before, and starting to energise and inspire young people about what their careers choices should be. So we're very proud of that service. We also run a growth hub service, as many of you will know, which is a service we've been running in-house for 2 years now. I'm delighted to say that that service is now exceeding all of the performance targets that we've been set and is exceeding the performance of the service that government used to fund. It used to run a national service called Business Link and has now been run through LEPS. So everything we do through that growth hub is going extremely well. We have 94% positive feedback from the more than 1,200 businesses that we helped last year, and almost 90% of them are saying that the help they're getting from our service they wouldn't have known how to get elsewhere. So these are real entrepreneurs, small businesses out there getting the advice from us to help take the right steps in growing their business. One of the things I wanted to talk about today, and I'm delighted to announce today, is an improvement, a further investment of resources in the support that we give to small businesses, and the launch in the autumn of our Escalator programme for high growth small businesses. Now, there's been a lot of research at national level about how businesses grow and thrive in the UK, and a lot of evidence that a very small number of businesses make a disproportionate contribution to the regional economy. Very high growth businesses would be businesses that have 20% growth in turnover or employee levels for 3 consecutive years. And these businesses are responsible for about 1 in 3 new jobs created in the economy. So they're really, really productive way of bringing people to the labour market and developing specialisations in new technology and new types of business. They're quite hard to find. Fewer than 1% of businesses fall into this category. And I think by their very nature, they tend not to turn up at events like this because the people who run them are busy developing the businesses to that level. So what we're going to launch is a programme with the chambers and other partners in the region to find these businesses across the coastal capital area, to link these entrepreneurs together, to link them up with the resources that exist in the region, like our innovation centres, our scale-up centres and other things, and really help them establish themselves here. We know from research that 75% of high-growth businesses think the business environment is unfriendly to them, and it's hard for them to develop. And we want to remove the blockages that exist to that in this region, so we have much faster growth of our highly productive small businesses. I'm going to move on in a second to talk about our strategy, but before I do, I just want to say a couple of words about what you can expect from Coastal Capital going forward. We're very, very conscious as a company that the money we spend is public money, and it's really important to the board, to the chairman, and to me that we're fully accountable and transparent and trusted in how we do that. So I wanted to say that explicitly to you. If you're not familiar with our website already and you want to know more about what Coastal Capital does, I would encourage you to look at that, and on there you'll find full evidence of all the decisions that we take, all of the business cases behind the investments that we make, all of the things which underpin our accountability to ministers and to Parliament for the public money that we use. It also contains details of conflicts on the board and how we resolve them, and all of the principles we adopt to make sure that we're a really trusted partner to everyone in the region going forward. And to be really clear, for me and for the board going forward, this is one of the most important things to deepen our trust and our relationships within the region, and to build confidence in us in what we do next. And I'll move on to introduce you to the document that you've got in front of you. I forgive you for not having read it yet, but I do hope you've had time to admire the artwork, which we're very proud of. We have done an awful lot of analysis, as I've said, about how the region's economy works, and as Tim said, there is some cause for concern about the performance of the region relative to other regions in the UK. There's a sense, I think, that because we're in the south of England and because we're not a city region, that our economy is fine and doesn't necessarily need any help. But actually, we think that's far from the truth. And this slide is you'll find it in your pack, but it's an illustration of how our economy has compared over the last 20 years with similar regions. And we've compared ourselves with other regions which are not city regions, have a high rural population, a high rural area, have a lot of suburbs or smaller towns, places like Cheshire and Warrington, or Milton Keynes and the surrounding area, or Bristol and Bath. And what you can see is that over 20 years ago, we were absolutely in company with those regions. Our economy was 5 to 10% bigger than the national average in terms of GVA per head. But I'm afraid, as of 2016, that's no longer the case. Coastal Capital is the red line, and our economy is now 5% below the national average, whereas the others have all come out of the recession and have continued to grow, are developing models of growth in their parts of the country that's getting strong government support and are starting to move forward. So this, for us, illustrates the burning platform that Tim described earlier, that we cannot be complacent about our region, and we need to understand really clearly what lies behind this performance, what we might do about it. I'll illustrate that for you now. The first thing to say is that our relationship with London, which has always been very important to the region, is probably getting a little bit imbalanced now in terms of the number of people who commute to London to earn money, and in terms of the way that the London labour market and the salaries that people can earn in London is getting out of kilter with what people can earn locally. And we know this is a very expensive region to live in, and we've done some work on the affordability of housing within the region. So what you can see on this graph is the multiple of average house prices to average earnings, and it shows you that within the coastal capital area, this number is very high. The average house price is between 9 and 16 times the average earnings within the region, which makes us the most expensive area in the whole of England. To exacerbate that further, the disparity between people who work in the region and people who commute to London is significant. So the red dot on this map, this is done district by district or local authority by local authority. The red dot illustrates how it's even harder for people to be able to afford to buy houses if they work locally. The blue dot is lower because if you work in London, you earn more money and you can afford to buy your house more easily. Now, this is fine insofar as it goes, but of course, as more and more people move out to the region and continue to commute back to London, it doesn't become sustainable. Our railways weren't designed, as we all know, as a sort of large, high-volume commuter railway with more and more and more people using them. They have their constraints, and we have 14,000 people moving out from London to our area last year alone. So, we have a growing population of people moving out here and continuing to commute back in. So something must be done, we believe, and the real challenge is to invest in our region so that we have more high-earning jobs within the region. We want to repatriate work from London into the coastal capital area, and we must avoid the fate of becoming a hollowed-out commuter corridor where the only way you can afford to live here is to commute to London for your whole working life. That's not sustainable as the population ages, and it's not sustainable in transport terms. We want more places like Crawley, which I mentioned before, or Leatherhead, where at the moment you can still, you can earn more money working locally than you can by commuting. And that's why the dots are reversed for those two places. So we want more and more places to have high-paid local jobs so that the workforce doesn't have to commute to London to be able to afford to live there. And the other thing we want to do is address our business base, because as we've looked at the way that business is constructed across the whole region, we are alarmed to find that Coastal Capital has only 1 in 3 jobs working in small and medium-sized companies, which are the red and pink lines in the middle of that graph. Coastal Capital is the third from the top. And what you can see from that is we have a very significant number of jobs in micro-businesses. Micro-businesses have fewer than 10 employees, and that's good. That's good. Micro-businesses often grow and they often become very successful. But micro-businesses do not normally take on apprenticeships in large numbers. They do not normally employ graduates. They do not normally export, and many micro-businesses never grow at all. So if a region is too dependent on micro-businesses and those micro-businesses can't grow, then we can't be too confident about our business base expanding as we would like. We also have a very large number of people working in large companies. Now, large companies are a great asset to the region, really, really important part of the regional economy, but because we have so many large companies, they are arguably casting too much of a shadow over the small and medium companies. So we feel that intervention is needed to help small and medium-sized companies grow, agglomerate, specialise, and start to build towns in the region where they've got a real specialisation in particular skills and sectors. And the good news is that we're very confident that those subsectors exist within the region in many, many sectors. And this slide is just some of the subsectors that we've identified. And you'll see this in the back of the document, but we have identified more than a dozen subsectors which are very present within the region. They exist in more than one town. They have a statistically significant presence. They are all ready for the technological revolution that's going to hit us in the next few years. Most of them are already competitive on a national or international basis, and most of them are desperate to grow and desperate to expand. And they exist in a wide range of sectors that you can see listed on this slide and on this slide, and they're present all across the region. So to us, this is a really clear signal that investment in our business space, investment in the way that the infrastructure for business to grow in the region will bring growth and a rebalancing of the economy in the way that I've described. Now, our vision for the growth of the region behind the Gatwick 360 headline is this, and I'd like to just unpack this for you because it's really important to understand what we're aspiring for here. So our vision is targeted for change by 2030. We don't think there's any time to waste, as Tim says. We can see other towns and cities all across the UK starting to explain how they are going to grow, and frankly, if we don't catch up with them, we're not going to be a place that grows as well as others. So we're very clear about the importance of doing this quickly. We want our towns and cities to be known around the world as fantastic places to live and to grow and to succeed. I've already talked about the need to have jobs in our towns. We can't afford to have the towns as just commuter destinations, which are hollowed out during the daytime and where there's no working economy during the week. We need to have business space all across the region in order to do this. And above all, we need to recognise that this is a region of towns and cities. We're not like Manchester or Birmingham or London where you've got a single city that grows and expands and everyone identifies with that. The truth is that the pattern for growth in in Caterham, the pattern for growth in Worthing, the pattern for growth in Chichester are all going to be very, very different. And the investment needs to reflect that, and our vision needs to reflect that. We want to be the most dynamic non-city region in England. We want to be recognised as such by government. We think government spends too much time thinking about cities, and we think that our area, with Gatwick at its heart, is fundamental. And we believe that Gatwick is the most important brand to use when describing our region outside. Gatwick is the beating heart of the economy. The economy is very diverse. It's not just about Gatwick, but Gatwick is the single biggest employer, the single biggest site, and the indirect cause of much of the investment in the region. And we want to be known more as the region with this fantastic asset and all of the assets across the whole region on the back of that. Our Gatwick 360 is a conscious choice because we think it brings out three of the main advantages we get from the airport. The first is obviously the global communication. So Gatwick can take you all around the world, as Guy will explain shortly. We're the only region in the UK, apart from London, that has such significant international connectivity. The second is Gatwick within the region. Gatwick is right at the heart of the region, and as we market ourselves internationally in a world of Brexit, Gatwick will be a big draw for getting investment into Brighton, into Chichester, into Croydon, and everywhere else. Not the only draw, but a very important part of marketing the region. And thirdly, we see Gatwick as a place in its own right. The airport, we believe, has a very important role as a growth point for development of the region. Gatwick Airport is surrounded by land which isn't protected, which is unusual in a region where a lot of the land is protected in the national park and elsewhere. And we're encouraging and very keen to work with local planning authorities around the airport to help coordinate the development plans that they bring forward to help deliver this vision. So that's our vision. And behind our vision, you'll see in the document 8 priorities, which we've set out and explained in a lot of detail. Crucially, what we haven't done here is identified projects behind each one. So you won't find under any of these, under most of these headings, a list of projects that we'd like to deliver. There's 1 or 2 exceptions I'll come on to in a second. But as we start to lobby on the back of this strategy, what we want to do is work with all of our partners in the region, every area of the region, to find the best business cases that deliver this region. And they'll be all across the region. Some of them will be in some places, otherwise they'll be elsewhere. And really, through this, we want to bring forward business cases from coast to capital which have a national significance. So we can go to the government and say, don't just think of us as a sleepy place, this is what we can deliver against these objectives. I'll just go through them so you can understand, and then I'll finish my presentation. So the first priority is the importance of investing in our urban centres. Our urban centres are not cities, although Croydon and Brighton are cities, but they're small cities. Most of the rest of the region is towns, and we need investment in these towns in order to make them thrive and continue to grow through business space, through housing, through roads, through social infrastructure, education infrastructure, health infrastructure. We need to prioritise that with visions for how will all of our towns develop. Secondly, we need to invest in our business space. As I've said before, if we don't have proper investment in business space, then we will not be able to get investment from companies coming into the area. So we're very keen to work with different planning authorities and think about what is needed to improve the size, the quality, the scale, the flexibility of your business stock in order to make the region more competitive. Thirdly, we need to invest in sustainable growth. We have to talk about the green areas between our towns and settlements. We have to invest equally in the countryside and the natural capital in order to come up with proper sustainable growth. We need to have plans for energy, water, waste, and all the other things that underpin truly sustainable growth and which are going to give us a competitive advantage as time goes by. Fourthly, we need investment in skills. Skills are fundamental to the economy, as you all know, and we need to make sure that we've got a skill set through our further education sector and other training providers that allows us to meet that. That means investment in capital, it means investment and subsidy in the charge that people have to pay to get reskilled, and it means making sure that apprenticeships and T-levels and new initiatives work properly in this region. Fifthly, we need to focus on innovation. We have a highly productive regional economy, but because we're not a city region, we don't have enough universities. We have universities in Brighton, we have universities in Chichester, but once you go north of the Downs, the presence of the universities fades dramatically. And we are very strong supporters of a renewed university presence in the Gatwick Diamond and in Croydon to help boost the innovation and the development of those economies, which are already highly productive but have a lot more capacity to come out. Next, transport. We have very strong supporters of Transport for the South East, which is the government's new vehicle for investing across the whole wider region. But specifically in this region, we're very strong supporters of Crossrail 2, which will link East Surrey into London. And we're very strong supporters of long-term investment in the Brighton Main Line. The Brighton Main Line links our whole region together. It's not just the line from Brighton to London. Specifically, the Windmill Bridge Junction scheme in Croydon, which is a top priority for the GLEP and has been for a year or more. And to finish, our digital capability needs urgent investment. And our digital capability is one of our major assets in the region. We have enormous strength in Brighton, in the 5G centre, and in all sorts of different sectors across the region, and we need a new digital spine that links them together. What we're pushing for is to use the new railway infrastructure, the digital railway that's having a few teething trouble at the moment, to use the digital railway to link all of our towns and cities together so that we get full fibre connectivity between every town and city in the region. And we believe that will make us the first region in the UK with a fully 5G ready infrastructure and will give us a great competitive advantage when it comes to new technologies of the future. And finally, we believe that we need a stronger national identity, and we're taking the first step towards this with our strategy today and the branding that we've put around it. All across the world, we can find the devolved administrations, the northern cities, and partners in other parts of the UK really lobbying hard for investment opportunities in their cities, in China, in the Middle East, in Japan, in the States, and that's reflected in the stats from government about where foreign direct investment is going. Now, we urgently need to catch up with that, and we need to make sure that we understand how to lobby internationally and how to bring forward and promote sites, whether that's in Brighton, whether it's in the Gatwick Diamond, the Coastal Strip, Croydon, or anywhere else. We need to be really clear how we get private money in to go with the public money that we need from government. And that's where I will finish. There's a lot more to do. Our focus next is to talk extensively to government about this strategy. As I said before, we've timed this to coincide with the Brexit decision process so that we can be at the top of ministers' minds when it comes to thinking about future regional policy after Brexit. We're talking to every government department about the 8 priorities I just described, and we're working very, very hard on that. You will see a lot more from us after the summer recess about how Coastal Capital is going to work with different areas and what we need to do to bring you all with us. But our goal is to be ready for a local industrial strategy negotiation with government next year, and in time for that to have a whole load of business cases ready that match up with these 8 priorities which I've just described. So there's a lot more to do between now and then. That's what we're preparing for through our strategy. I'm very grateful to you for attending. I'm very grateful to my fantastic team who are here today, who are summarised in this slide, as well as my excellent board who've been very supportive throughout the whole process. So thank you very much, everyone, for the work you've done to take us to this point.